So this is my brake and clutch pedal setup. I built this, 2018, so 6 years ago. That's how long it's been in the car. It's got some wear going on. It was even wearing into the bolt that was used for the pivot, big groove right there. Clutch pedals cracked through here. And then I had some misalignment where the cable's been digging in to the clutch quadrant. And that I kind of knew about. I might even ground some of this out of the way to begin with, but it's definitely accelerated from what it originally was. So I'm going to build this better, probably the way I should have built it the first time around, and make some big improvements. The big part of the cable wear is where it ends up is a little off center, so the cable's like kind of riding on that thing at an angle. So I'm gonna move the quadrant over. I had two washers on that side, so I can pull both washers out. That'll be almost a 1/4 inch, but I might have to hit or cut some more of the sheet metal inside of there out of the way, just make sure I don't have any problems. I'm kind of hoping I can just hit it with a punch from the bottom side down in the footwell and fold that material up so that it doesn't rub. Might have to cut it out of the way. One obvious thing, I never should have run this with the two holes so close together. I should have welded this upper one solid that I ended up not using, and I shouldn't have left it so thin. Should have bridged it in here. There's no reason that it should have been this way. It just, I don't know. I'm guessing for as much pain in the butt as I had trying to take this thing out, I had just as much pain in the butt 6 times when I was trying to figure this out in the first place, and was just kind of over it. As you can see, I've had to reinforce this clutch pedal a few times. I also just twisted this bottom back a little bit straighter, so it might even need a little more strength down here on the bottom, but that's the least of my worries. What I need to do is fix the cracks up here. Obviously going to change out the pivot bolt that's worn for a new one, and instead of having such a narrow little spot be a possible pivot where this thing is rotating, because what happened was it was literally just riding on that one little point where it was rotating. The clutch quadrant was adding a little bit more material there, but it was also aluminum, so it's softer. And most of the load ended up going through right here, which didn't help. Fix that. I've got this piece of steering shaft tube. It's 3/4 OD, 1/2 inch through the center, so slips over the bolt nice and easy. And I'm going to cut the length that I need to remove all of these 4 washers and a spacer. And I'm just going to cut a single piece out of this because I'm going to put it all to one side, and then we'll just weld that sucker right on, and then this entire section will then be supporting the load instead of just the narrow point of the clutch pedal itself. Now with my spacer cut, put a bigger chamfer on one side. That'll be to provide some room for getting a little weld penetration on the bracket. Also welded this nut onto here, as well as bridging this gap to fill that in and strengthen this part up a little bit, which is the reinforcement for the clutch. Now, I'll have to grind this flat on the pedal itself, but then this assembly will go in there just like that. And then the clutch quadrant has to sit in here. And we'll have moved the pedal this way to try to line up that cable a lot better in the hole. And this is why I took everything apart. Just because of the way things work out, this clutch cable is sandwiched between a header tube and the oil pan, so obviously it sees a lot of heat. The first time I had a problem with this was when I went out to Colorado, and after which I added this DEI aluminized heat shielding, and I've had to change this stuff out every once in a while when I've had the engine and transmission out. But as you can see, it wore through and it's melted, and it's probably why I was getting a little bit of a funky feeling clutch pedal. So I got a new cable on the way. We're going to try some of the DEI fire sleeve this time. I don't know, they're both rated for 500 degrees of direct contact and 2000 intermittently. But to step it up a notch, as long as I got enough room to squeeze it in there, I'm going to put some of this stuff on. And I've never used this before. It's a Ford insulator. I was told that this stuff is what they use on some cars, and they literally peel and stick it directly to catalytic converters. So if that's the case, I should be able to cut a strip of that, wrap it around my clutch cable, and probably have no problems. But we'll try it out and see how it goes. New clutch quadrant has been modified and mounted. Modifications are, need to cut this tab off because we can't use this bolt because it's too far out and it interferes with the firewall and some other stuff. And I need the cable to run across the top of there because of how the angle works out. Also, because this was solid before, needed to cut this channel in there. That I just did with a cutoff wheel, cut a couple of slots in it, and then once I got the bulk of the material out, I just chased it with a file. And guess what? A chainsaw file fits right in that groove just about perfectly. It's almost a little bit snug down here, but I just file it to get a little bit around. We shouldn't end up with any wear on this one, or well, it's gonna wear, but it should be a lot less than the old one because the old one was basically the full width of this farther over to that side. So by moving this over, we should line that cable up a lot more and really reduce the amount of wear. Well, by the looks of it, the new cable is actually a little bit longer in overall length, which is good. It means maybe I can free up a little bit of some space where it's pinch tight. You can see where I modified this bracket. I'll need to do that to this one as well because these things don't just pop off over there. Otherwise, I mean, cable length looks like it's definitely the same that sticks out on both ends, so I'm not worried about having any problems with that. Got the cable put back in. I had previously been riveted up here, but I ended up tapping the worn out holes because this tends to come loose. It's not exactly straight because it's hard to get in there, but it'll hold better than what it was. The bracket that holds this, I ended up pulling from the other part instead of modifying the other one because I realized that I had flipped it over also. So it was easier just to take that one and swap it. Now down here under the car, you can see we got the fire sleeving on the cable up here. I tried to stick this stuff to it, didn't want to stick, so I'll put it right on the header. We'll see whether that holds up or not, but the big thing here is, I mean, I've got a lot more clearance here than I did when I had the wet sump pan, because it would have been shoved right tight. But I know I can kind of pull this out a little bit too, so maybe I'll find somewhere to zip tie this out farther away, and that'll help prevent any melting in the future also. I don't know if you can see it up in there, but I put a zip tie around the end of that cable to hold it onto the quadrant, just because it likes to spring off. Like, it'll catch when the cable's got tension on it, but if I were to loosen up and do something with the transmission and that went slack, it would pop right off. So I put a zip tie on those just to hold them in place. Well, let's try it out. What? Holy crap. Jeez. Okay, well, I'd say the clutch is probably 10 times less effort to push in, or more. Like, wow, it's so easy now. Weird how that works when things aren't messed up. Yeah, holy cow, is it? I wonder how much of that effort was the cable rubbing sideways on the quadrant. It's like, holy cow, like, it's never been this easy to push in before. Wow. That's crazy. Well, that's certainly going to make driving a little different.